Hey guys, my name is Brian and welcome to another episode of What the Fuck Did I Just Watch? I'm here with my best friend and co-host Christina, where every week we'll be rolling a 26-face letter die that will determine the first letter of the movie we will watch this week. The twist is that one of us, or both of us, have never seen the movie before. So join us as we share our thoughts on the movie, have a few laughs, and discuss what the fuck we just watched. Hey everyone, welcome back to another episode of What the Fuck Have We Been Watching?
Incorrect.
I'm your host Brian, and with me is my co-host.
Hello, it's Christina.
Hello. How have you been, Tina?
This week has been good. It's been really busy, but it's been productive. And I'm excited.
Yeah. I look forward to this weekly now.
Yes.
It's good.
I just didn't understand what we were getting ourselves into.
With this week?
Correct.
Yeah. So this week, back up. Last week, we rolled the letter R, and there was quite a few movies to choose from. But my immediate thought was what we're doing this week, which is Requiem for a Dream. I had admittedly never seen it. I had heard a lot about it. I have a lot of friends that have watched it. And all have said the same thing, which is that it's a great movie. You will only want to see it once. And it's really heavy in its subject matter. And I couldn't agree with that more.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Had you seen it? You hadn't, right?
No, I had not.
Okay. We watched this on Cinemax.
Well, you did.
You did not?
No. Liv actually had it on DVD.
Okay. Well, I don't even own a DVD player anymore, so I couldn't have even borrowed it.
We have two.
Okay. Wow.
A
Privileged.
DVD is a disc, much like a CD, that holds the movie.
Mm.
So instead of streaming it, you can watch a DVD.
Wow.
Yeah.
Thank you for that history lesson.
You're welcome.
So, okay, I watched it on Cinemax because that's really the only place it's streaming. I just did the 7-day free trial, watched it, canceled it. There's really not much on Cinemax to watch. Anyway, overall, how was your experience watching it without getting into like the nitty gritty of it?
No, I told my sister that we were going to watch it. And her first words were, "Oh, you're going to hate it, but it's a really good movie, but I think you're going to hate it." And I didn't hate it. It was just really heavy. Exactly like you said. I mean, we're going to get into it, but if you've never seen Requiem for a Dream, you need to prepare yourself.
Yes. You
need to be really open-minded and accept what's on the screen, because it was a ride.
Yeah. And it's very real, like the way that it's shot and how everybody's portrayed. It's just it's like you're watching this being documented to real people, right?
Yeah.
Like if this were complete unknowns playing the role, and someone told me that this was filmed, if their life was being filmed, for the most part, I would believe it. Granted, there are, some sequences that obviously are not being,
right.
No,
anyway. But it was really real. Like all the situations in which the characters experienced were extreme, emotional, but they were possible. Right. And so I think that's what hit home really hard, is that none of these things were, way out of left field. Like these things could potentially be real life events.
Exactly. So that said, I'm not going to say I enjoyed the movie. It was a very good movie. I can't say that I'm going to visit it again, but I'm glad that I watched it.
Yeah.
And that I can tell people to watch it if they're in the right headspace to do so. Right. I think that's another reason that I had never watched it, is because I've heard it so heavy, and I never thought I was in the right headspace to watch it. I probably still wasn't.
No, I mean, that's very fair, because even going into it yesterday. So I did try and watch this movie 3 times. I fell asleep twice, and yesterday I was finally able to get through the whole thing.
Not because
it was boring.
Right.
No, not at all. I just, we work. We have full-time jobs, and then we come home and we have to do things at our home. And then I try and find time to watch the movie. So, yeah, yesterday was really intense. But I have to agree with you. Like, it's not something that I think I would watch again unless somebody asked me to watch it with them that had never seen it before.
Right.
And even then I would have to kind of consider it.
Right.
Because there's a lot. Okay, we should just dive into it and we'll talk about it. And then you guys will see. Because there's a lot of really intense scenes that are hard to stomach. So
That word's going to be used so much. Intense.
Hey Google, what are synonyms for the word intense?
Please don't activate all of our Googles. All right. So, Requiem for a Dream was my pick this week. It came out in 2000, which alone is crazy to me because I think I'm just getting old. Because I don't feel like it's been 21 years. Right. But they all look so young.
Yeah.
So, yeah, it makes sense. It's starring Ellen Burstyn, Jared Leto, Jennifer Connelly, and Marlon Wayans. It was directed by Darren Aronofsky, who has gone on to direct things like Mother, Black Swan, and Pi. The budget for Requiem was $4.5 million. It grossed $3.6 million, US and Canada. The IMDb rating is by far the highest that we've seen so far on the show. IMDb was 8.3, and the Rotten Tomatoes was 79% with a 93% audience score.
Wow.
Yeah, well deserved.
Yeah.
Right. I would really like to see how many. I don't think there's a way to calculate this, but just how many return viewings this has.
No, it is. It would be interesting to see it. I mean, Nick said that she's seen it a few times.
Her sister.
Yes.
Your sister.
Sorry, my sister. But I don't know that I could watch it again unless I was in. We're gonna talk about it a lot, but you just have to be in a certain mind space. So we'll dive into it. For those of you that are new to the podcast, there are spoilers. If you plan on trying to watch Requiem for a Dream, you do not want to listen to this podcast first. You will want to watch the movie and then come back and listen to us and
Please.
hear our thoughts and let us know what you guys think. So, the movie starts off, and I have to say that one thing that I did enjoy about the movie is the way that they chose to film things.
Sure.
It was really different and really beautiful sometimes, and really added to the emotional aspect of the movie.
Have you seen any of the other movies that he's directed?
I did see Black Swan.
Okay.
And same thing, right? As far as the way that they chose to film things was really beautiful and really intense at times. And so
an otherwise depressing ass movie.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't think I've seen Mother, but that's a scary one. So duh. No? Okay. Well,
Not
It
really.
is categorized as a scary movie.
Right.
Therefore, I stay away from those.
And it also has heavy subject matter that is filmed beautifully.
Oh, really?
That's what he does.
Yeah.
The
movie begins, and Jared Leto's character, Harry, is in his mom's home, and he is taking her TV. I know that she freaks out a little bit about it. I didn't...
Yeah, she locks herself in a room.
Which I didn't quite understand.
I will say that's the one part I didn't really get why it was happening.
Right.
I understand why he's taking the TV. I just don't understand her locking herself in the room while he does so when it's obvious he does this all the time. So I'm not sure how to read that.
Yeah.
But again, I did not go back to revisit it to watch it in a new light.
I watched
afterwards.
it 3 times and I still don't understand.
Okay, well, there you go.
And just as a reminder, it was only the first 30 or 45 minutes of the movie. But she's in the closet and she's like this. She's talking to herself and she's like, this isn't happening. And she references Seymour, who at the time we don't know who that is. And it ends up being her maybe deceased husband. Did they ever say that he died or he's just gone, missing out of the picture anyway?
That's what I got from
Yeah.
But you saw it 3 times.
The first 2 times I was very tired. So that was a weird scene in itself, and the way that their relationship is really complex. Later on, you find out that this is kind of a habitual thing that they're doing.
Yeah, it's normal.
He steals a TV, he goes and he sells it for money, she goes and buys the TV back. Mm-hmm. And that to me was kind of crazy. And it was the same person that he's constantly selling the TV to. Right. And the guy,
they all know the drill.
Yeah. He calls him a piece of shit, but doesn't call him a piece of shit.
Right. Yeah.
I liked that quote that he gave. He was like, your mother needs you about the same way a moose needs a hat rack. Even the dialogue that they're having between one another is sometimes really strange and off-putting. I don't know
the
how else
mom and Jared Leto?
The conversations in
the
general. Movie in general.
Yeah. But it's all very normal for them.
Correct.
It's just not for us.
So they sell the TV, they get money, they score, and is it heroin?
It's never said, but yeah.
Okay. Because
they're shooting it up.
Right. And I know they're talking about bricks, and I never did drugs, guys. Keep your kids away from drugs. I mean, they were always, I guess, around, but it was never something that I personally did. So I was completely lost with the lingo.
Right. I mean, I'm almost 100% sure it is heroin. But the only thing that, which I later learned was just a filming choice by him, or a visual choice by him, was whenever they shoot up, their eyes dilate. Uh-huh. But that's not the effect heroin would have. It would have the opposite effect.
Interesting.
So the dilation would be, I think, for X.
Like an upper?
Yes.
Okay.
So I think I read that after watching the movie and doing research for this.
That was also really cool. I liked the way that they played that into every time they...
Yeah, they showed him burning it and drawing it up.
Yeah. I thought that was a really cool choice to make.
And they never actually show them shooting up until almost the very end.
Right.
In the car.
Which we'll get to.
Yeah, that was disgusting.
Stay tuned.
So after his mom gets her TV back, it shows for the first time that she's watching, it's almost like a game show. Mm-hmm. Or...
Oh, that's how the movie actually started out. It was Juice by Harry, or whatever it is. Right. And then it falls into that scene, which is very weird.
Yeah. But that's her life. Mm-hmm. She's constantly watching this and just admiring these people, looking up to them, idolizing them, and wanting so bad to get on the show, or just to get on TV, period. Mm-hmm. And it also shows her daily ritual of going outside with her girlfriends. Mm-hmm. A bunch of... Which
I thought was really cute, because I don't really think you see that anymore. The way that women used to sit outside and, maybe just watch the kids play sun. Or get some sun. Yeah, that's their gossip time, right?
Right. And it's just her and the other women of her age from the building, and the woman in the middle has the best seat, is what is established. Mm-hmm. She gets the most sun, right? And that's what it is. Which I don't know if completely makes sense.
Yeah.
Unless it's just coming in between two buildings or something.
Yeah, probably. I mean, there's 35 of them sitting on the sidewalk.
Don't think there's...
No, there's only
maybe 10.
15.
We'll go with 12. And a half.
No, yeah, it was a... Oh, and that was the other thing, too. When he stole the TV, he walked the TV in front of all of those women. And they were know. Yeah, everybody knows, but... that it was such a common thing that nobody said anything. They just, this is what he does. He steals the TV every day, and then Sarah has to go pick it up. Mm-hmm.
So she gets a phone call while watching the
game show.
Yeah, the game show.
If that's what it is. I guess it's not really a game show. It's just...
It's almost like an infomercial, but how they broadcast sermons. Almost like a mixture between an infomercial and a Sunday sermon being broadcast.
Yeah.
So she gets a phone call while watching the show, letting her know that she's been chosen to appear on the show. Mm-hmm. And her
it was a very odd call, right?
Right.
There was that really energetic voice on the other end of the phone. It still had the same ring as like a telemarketer.
Right.
But it was like, no, Sarah, I'm calling to tell you that you won. You're going to be on TV. And the way that she's registering it while still watching the TV, it's like she's just zoned out.
And it's so like reminiscent of now how elderly people are directly targeted by telemarketers and by ads online, and they don't know better.
Nope.
They see something, they see a pop-up that says,
Winner, winner, winner.
yeah, you won $1,000. Put in your information to claim it. And they do, and then they get their identity stolen.
Yep.
Or something along the lines.
And they never really told you what kind of information that they required from her, but that's what I was scared of in the beginning, because that was such an odd scene whenever she's filling out the form and all of her friends are like, oh, we'll spell it out for you. S-A-R-A. And they're all, spelling out her name for her like she can't do it herself.
Right.
It's like, this is the highlight of all of their lives right now.
Exactly.
This is all they're living for. Like, this is the most exciting thing that has happened to them in obviously a very long time.
Exactly. So she gets the call, gives her information, and agrees to have the information mailed to her. Sure. So every day she's going to her mailbox looking for it. It shows her opening and closing it over and over again, harassing the mailman. All the while, she is fixated on this red dress that she so badly wants to fit back into to wear on TV. To her, it's just like the epitome of glamour, right? So it does not fit. It doesn't zip up all the way.
Well, it's also from her son's high school graduation, and he is very clearly like, I don't know.
Early 30s.
Yeah, I would
maybe
think
late
so.
20s.
Late 20s.
Right.
So, I mean, it's easily been a decade.
Yeah.
Which a lot changes in that time.
So one of her friends gives her the inside scoop on a doctor that will give her pills to lose weight. So she goes in, and this doctor is just in and out. She says she wants to lose weight. So the doctor's like, you're going to take these 4 pills throughout the day, and the weight's going to fall off.
That's what I thought was really weird. Is he came in, he didn't do an exam, he wrote her a script, and then just let her leave. Even before that, the thing that I thought was really interesting is that before she ever went to the doctor, her friend gave her that how to lose 10 pounds in like 10 days or something like that. And it was the grapefruit, the egg, and the cup of coffee, and that's all she could eat.
Right.
But I really liked the way that the TV was going in the background. And, a lot of noise can cause anxiety. This movie is definitely meant to put you into an unsteady
You're uncomfortable
sense of self, right? And so the way that they kept highlighting the no, so it was like no sugar, no meat, or whatever the case may be, and it was like no, 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 no.
And her fridge starts
coming for her.
Yeah. Like everything in it is what she wants, and it's just coming to life and terrorizing her.
I thought it was funny that she was having night terrors with all the delicious treats we all love to enjoy. She's laying in bed, and it was like
cupcake night terrors.
Cupcakes.
And then I wake up in the middle of the night and go eat. And that's why I've been gaining weight.
Well, it's not just your fault. His dog really loves to wake him up in the middle of the night for some food. In case anybody is interested in that fun fact.
2 a.m. every morning. I eat when she eats. It's a terrible relationship.
It's important that they have snacks.
Sure.
Oh, and there was this really weird scene, and I have to bring attention to it because it was very odd. She's watching the show, and she has that chocolate box that she's holding, and she does some weird stroking things to the chocolates before she ever decides which one she wants to grab.
I don't want to say it was sexual, but it almost was.
Like,
and the way that she picked the one chocolate, it was very strokey.
Yeah.
It's not a good word for it.
No, but I understand what you're saying.
Yeah. But yeah, so that was odd.
It was very odd. She was like romanticizing the chocolates. Like, these are mine. It's almost the same way that you'd see the crazy cat lady like stroking her Persian.
So,
Except she probably wouldn't
not
eat
sexual.
her cat, but
as soon as she gets the pills from the doctor, I mean, to me, it was pretty apparent, just given the subject matter I knew about the movie, what was going to transpire.
right.
And that they were obviously just uppers that were going to keep her moving, and that's how the weight was going to shed, right? So she starts taking them as directed, one pill every however many hours.
I don't know. It was like in the morning, lunch, dinner, and then right before bed.
Yeah. And she expresses that she just wants the best seat in her line of friends. She wants to be on TV. She wants to be glamorous. She really wants to be liked. And she wants that best seat because that just makes her queen bee. Right?
It's the hierarchy in her
Exactly.
little social
it's the
group.
hierarchy. Right.
The scenes kind of that are playing in between this is Jared Leto and Jennifer Connelly's character, Harry and Marion. They go into a building. They go to the roof. They're doing their thing, whatever. They're having a conversation about potentially opening a store because I guess Marion is into fashion, if I'm not mistaken. But then they kind of dive a little bit into like their home situation, right? So Marion's parents obviously have a lot of money. It sounds like they want to be involved with her, but maybe don't know how, or they are aware of her problems, so they don't really give her the resources she needs because that would just feed her addiction, right?
It'd just be enabling.
So they're both coming from very different backgrounds, but I guess find each other in their drug use.
Right.
I did like the camera angle. There is one scene where Jared Leto and Jennifer Connelly are laying in bed together. I think they're laying in bed together. I think it's right after they did heroin, maybe. But they're talking to one another, kind of expressing their love. I liked the way that they chose to do that.
Oh, like it didn't
filming.
show them like right next to each other,
Right.
but it was a split screen.
Right.
Right. It was cool. Yeah.
The only thing that bothered me, and I don't know if you caught it, is that their hand motions were not in line with what was going on the other screen. So like he would move and his hand wasn't necessarily like moving with his arm, and then suddenly his hand would it was just slightly off. And that made my eye twitch a little bit. Tell me if I'm wrong. Somebody watch it, let me know. But that in itself made that scene kind of hard to watch. But I did like, the choice of doing the split screen. I thought that was pretty cool. I made a note about how I couldn't snort anything. Was there a scene in which they like snorted something? I think that when they're doing the cuts, like when they're actively using the heroin and they're doing those cuts, there's like those points in which they're like snorting something off a table. So maybe they're combining it with like cocaine. I'm not sure. But I could never be somebody who could snort something.
No.
That freaks me out so much.
I can't even do like those nose drops. Like when you have like strep or something.
Yeah. The neti pots freak me out. Yeah, no.
Oh, I can't do neti pots.
Yeah.
Gross.
Yeah. If you don't use the right kind of water, you could get brain eating.
Oh, yeah, like if you use dirty water.
Yeah. Some people have died because they don't boil their water or use filtered water or whatever it is.
It's disgusting.
That's terrifying, but it's true. It's passing super close to your brain. So, sorry about the snorting comment. Anyways, there was that weird scene where Jared Leto gets high and he sees Marion on the bridge. And he's like trying to call her.
Oh, on the pier.
Sorry. Yeah. So,
Okay.
Jared Leto's character has like a trip, right? And he's on that pier. And I, for the life of me, could not understand why he was calling her, but nothing was coming out. Is that just his form of a trip? Did you gather anything from that?
I didn't read anything. I knew it was trying to say something. It wasn't registering with me because it shows that a few times.
Right. I think it's twice. Two or
three. And I just don't know if that's his loneliness manifesting or
some kind of disconnect.
Yeah, that she's on a different plane than he is. There's a disconnect between them. in the relationship. I mean, their relationship is fucked up, right?
Yes. I couldn't help, now thinking back on it, it wasn't funny at the time, but Marion is like, not Marion, I apologize. But Sarah is the mom, Miss Goldfarb is in her kitchen, and she's so hungry because she hasn't been able to eat anything. This is prior to her starting the pills, and she sees that juicy hamburger just kind of chilling in her kitchen, and that's the first time you see the fridge try and come after her.
Right.
And then that just becomes like this manifestation of I lost my train of thought. Oh.
But manifestation of what?
I don't know. You just need to take that out. I just know that that's the first time that the refrigerator starts coming after her. And it's not funny, but again, looking back on it, it is kind of funny that she like continued to stay near the kitchen watching the TV show because that is her life. That is what she does. Right. She just can't stray from it, even though this fridge is clearly going to murder her.
And even though this show that she's watching is literally the same thing every single time we see it. Mm-hmm. There's nothing new. Nope. There's no cliffhangers.
No.
I don't even know if there's commercials because it seems like the entire thing is a commercial.
Mm-hmm. So as the movie continues, you find that the three of them, so
Harry, Marion, and Tyrone come up with a plan to buy heroin, cut it with something else, and make more money off of it than what they bought it for. Make a profit off of their purchase, right?
Right.
So that they can save enough to where they can go into business for themselves and that they don't run out of a supply.
Yeah.
Right?
There's this weird scene where Tyrone is with a woman and they're in maybe his apartment and he's playing with the mirror, and then he has a weird trip down either memory lane or maybe he just kind of manifested that from maybe a previous memory that he had, but it was a little bit different. And that's the first time that you see that that's where his mentality is on his mom. Yeah. Like he's always trying to make his mom proud, or he misses his mom. I don't think that she's present anymore because they don't show her in this timeline.
Yeah. You know what I appreciated about that, and this is not like a pervy comment, but you don't see a lot of black sex scenes, and I just thought it looked like really pretty.
It was.
Is that weird? Okay.
No, it was. The way that they decided to film it.
From above. Uh-huh. And, I mean, they both have, like, great bodies, right? So they're pretty individually. But it was just a very well choreographed scene. It wasn't over the top like there is later in the movie.
Yeah.
It was just, like,
two people that care about each other. You could tell it wasn't a weird sexual experience.
I'm not sure they care about each other. Are they together?
It kind of looked like it. Yeah, she called him baby. He called her baby at one point in time. Or do you think that it's just a...
I don't know. She never comes back, right? Do we know her name?
I mean, we only see what the director decides to show us. In their world,
you're describing they could be every together. Movie ever.
That is my assumption. That was my perception.
Okay, sure.
So they were making enough money, right? From saving and cutting. And he buys her this insane entertainment center.
The mom. Harry buys
his mom a crazy entertainment center.
Right. Like straight from late 90s, 2000s. It is a big screen TV that is, you know, it's huge.
Yes.
And it's surrounded by speakers. I'm
sorry.
I think that's probably the one part that really dates the movie.
Yes.
Like the movie, for the most part, I think they could say it's happening now.
Could be plugged in anywhere.
Right. Mm-hmm. But I think that detail, today would have been like an 80-inch OLED with like a Sonos surround sound or something. So
It makes me miss my boombox. I've had this conversation with you before. I wish that
I'm
I
really
had.
tired of hearing it.
You're such a jerk. I'm really sad that I don't have my boombox anymore. I could probably get one at a pawn shop, but it's just not my boombox that I grew up with. Kids will never understand. I really liked the musical choices in this movie too. The scene where the mom is doing that like speed cleaning because that's what she's on. It's really beautiful, but it's really broken too. So it definitely helps to play into the type of emotion that the director is trying to get you to feel.
Right.
Meanwhile, I know we didn't cover it, but along with the red dress, she also wanted to relive that picture by dyeing her hair red as well. And her friend her friend is supposed to be helping her out. And I feel that she probably should have gone to the salon because she comes out,
Or picked out a better box.
I don't know how dyes worked in the early 2000s, but her hair comes out this burnt orange, and her friend tries to tell her over and over again that it's red. And I love that argument. She's like, if this is red, then what's orange? What is orange?
Okay, it's orange. Yeah. So the mom is repeatedly trying on her dress. The zipper's going up little by little, but not enough for her. She thinks she's going to get this call to come to Hollywood any day now, and she needs to be 100% ready.
Right.
So she takes it upon herself to double her dose, essentially, of what she's taking. And soon becomes like quadrupling her dose. Like she's just chewing pills.
Right. And even before you start seeing her kind of self-medicate, because I think that once she starts self-medicating, that's when the story really starts to just kick off in a bad way. Harry comes to visit her, and she mentions that she's lost 25 pounds.
Yes.
And even in that scene, I was like, that is really drastic. And I know that she tries to contact the doctor's office to tell them that she doesn't think it's working. And they're like, no, the pills are working. You just need to give it some time, whatever the case may be. But she slowly starts looking more and more disheveled.
Sure.
I mean, you can already tell that she's really chatty. She's more chatty than normal. She can't sit down. She just has to continue moving. She just she has this constant need to just keep moving. And I know Harry makes a comment to her, and he suspects that she's on uppers, and the mom argues with him and wants to know why he feels that she knows more about what she's taking than the doctor does.
Right.
And he can't really admit to his mom that he's also, a user.
They both know, right? I mean, she knows why he's taking the TV every time.
Does she? I don't know that it really mattered to her. It was her son. Because even the guy that took the TV mentioned to the mom, like, why don't you just turn him in? She's like, he's my only son. I could never do that. I don't know. It's possible that she knows, but it's also possible that she's just in her own head.
Yeah. I mean, I'm sure she suspects, but she just won't admit it to herself because that's her, again, like you said, her only son.
And she's so adamant about being a grandma. I remember that she just keeps pushing, like, oh, have you met a woman or, a lady friend yet? And when are you going to have babies? And it's just all the things that you would kind of hear your mother talking about.
Right.
But in a very alarming sense. What words would you use to describe her?
Her affection towards Harry is almost amplified. Like, I can't think of a different word for it, but it's just her normal self sped up.
Right. And that is also, when he visits her, the scene in which she really opens up about how she's feeling, which was super heavy. You can tell that she's really isolated, really alone now that her husband passed. She doesn't feel needed. Harry doesn't live there anymore. I think it's kind of a loss of identity. And so with that came a lot of depression. And so she focused on something that would make her really happy and obsessed over being on this show.
Yeah. That became her one thing to live for, is just to go to Hollywood, be on this show. It shows multiple times this glamorized version of herself on the show with the big red hair that's actually red, in the red dress, without all of like the prosthetics that were added to the actress. You know, she's slimmed down.
Right.
Just like the perfect version of herself, and being
loved. And
being loved, having the audience
by
applaud.
The audience, and yeah.
Yeah, just getting that need for approval from everybody, right? So throughout the film, it gives you title cards of the season, right? And I don't remember if there was a title card break between when she started the pills and when her and Harry are having this conversation. But the way that I was kind of gauging the time that passed was by her roots, because her hair was such like a stark orange. And as she like slowly progresses down this road of just taking pill after pill, her hair's growing out. And it shows you how long it's been since they have not called her. She did her hair, I think, right before she sent off the letter, or right after. It was in that time frame.
And then the next part before we go into, I think winter is the last season. Marlon is in the limo or something with like the big time drug dealer in their area. And, you know, he says that he's been doing really good for him. The drug dealer says that he's been doing really good for him and wants to offer him a promotion. And then, you know, Marlon's excited about it. And the partition comes down and the driver just starts shooting everybody in the limo, which was very unexpected.
For them as well.
So messed up, but it's true. And so Tyrone, I keep calling him Marlon, but his name in the movie is Tyrone, escapes somehow, miraculously escapes, runs down an alley, gets apprehended by the police, and Harry has to use the money that they've been saving to post bail for him. And so that's where they lose. He even mentions that is where they lose a huge chunk of the money that they had been saving. That
scene in particular with the cops was hard to watch on its own, but just given the climate we're in now, it was just very alarming how things haven't changed, you know? And how
it is.
And how anyone of color is just ostracized by law enforcement. And I mean, there was some pretty heavy racial slurs thrown out, and that just made me cringe. Like, that was, out of all the shit that they show in the movie, the graphic details of drug use and the things that they're doing in order to get money for drugs and all this, hearing that, it had more of an impact, an emotional impact, than a lot of the other stuff in the movie, because that seemed the most real to me, because that's something that is happening. I mean, drugs are happening as well, but this is something that has been shown to us over and over again. And I mean, and that was 21 years ago.
Yeah.
So, I mean, get your shit together, America.
I liked, hopping back into it, the way that they started dressing Sarah in darker clothes, the mom, to kind of start showing her downward spiral with the drugs.
Yeah.
She had all of her curtains closed, and it was in the middle of the day. You can see the sun coming through the dark curtains.
Right.
She's in black versus wearing the normal red dress that she would wear. As you pointed out, her roots are super long, and I think that is when they start showing us that she has a little side table, like a TV tray, with her pills on them, and at this point they are spread out like Skittles.
Yeah,
and she is just grabbing them.
Yeah.
And then it takes a few minutes, but she obviously hits a high pretty quickly, and that's the really intense scene where the fridge is coming for her.
Yeah.
And you feel so awful for her because in the beginning of the movie, you can tell that maybe she's not all the way there. There are moments in which she seems very elated and really excited and just her personality has completely changed from the start of the movie to the end of the movie. And that's when she starts seeing herself more and more on the TV being announced and stuff. And that was the really weird part where she comes out of the TV and then what's his freaking name?
Like the host.
The host comes out of the TV too, and they're judging her and mocking her. And she like has this meltdown where she's like, I can explain, like, you know, I've been busy or whatever the case may be. And that was really sad to me because
heartbreaking.
Yeah, that's a lot of anxiety and depression for people. That I'm not saying that's how it manifests for everyone, right? But that's kind of those inner demons that you deal with, you know, like
the way it was visualized was really neat as well.
Yeah.
Like they look staticky.
Yes.
They look like they came off of her TV. I thought that was a really cool style choice.
I did enjoy that. Before they ever show Jared Leto's arm, he's in the apartment that they live in or whatever the case may be, and he makes like a very quick, subtle like scratch or something at his arm. And I remember thinking, oh my God, I hadn't even thought about that. Like, you know, an infection in that area. This is the first time that the movie foreshadows that something is going to be happening with, you know, his arm. And around this time is also when they start, their supply goes dry.
Yeah.
And
they get desperate.
This is where the movie really starts.
Yeah, this is probably like the last chunk, the last like 20, 25 minutes ish is when they all get really...
They're starting to go through the panic.
Yeah,
like,
so this is a point where they're all kind of starting to panic that they've run out.
Right. They don't have that steady supply that they've been counting on.
They made mention earlier in the movie of Big Tim.
Who's played by Keith David.
Okay. Who will give drugs, but he doesn't take money as payment. He wants sex, right? Not the exact words that were used, but it's a hot button word, and I'm not going to use this.
No.
Sex is his currency.
I will tell you really quickly before they like dive into Big Tim, this is the point where the mom goes back to the doctor. And she's at the doctor's office, and they use like the fisheye lens to film this scene, which really, really was a great decision, right. Because it kind of disorients the audience almost, and you feel like that. I don't know how to say it, like that womb effect.
Sure.
And I thought that was a really interesting way to film that scene because I think it's almost sped up even a little bit. The voices are distorted. The nurse is distorted. The doctor comes in. His voice is distorted. She's trying to tell him she doesn't feel good. And he doesn't look at her not once that entire scene. Right. He is facing the counter. He is jotting something down. She hasn't even finished telling him what's going on. And he just goes, here, take this. It's like, what did he say? Like a mood stabilizer or something?
Yeah, it's just another pill.
But it's just, exactly. He's just throwing meds at her. And you can clearly tell that she needs help. By this point, she's lost way more than 25 pounds. Oh, yeah. She looks sick. She hasn't taken that dress off since spring. Like, I mean, it was, like, we laugh about it.
No part of this movie was funny.
No, but like, in the moment, of course it's not. But looking back at it, I'm just like, oh my God, this poor lady. But it is a window into how fucked up these drugs can make people. I mean, she had absolutely no idea, or maybe she did, but she doesn't appear to have any idea of how this is affecting her.
It kind of goes back to just commenting on like the susceptibility of older people. Yeah. And, you know, how she got the call about being on TV and she jumped on it. She got this opportunity to lose weight just by taking pills and she jumped on it. So, I mean, it just kind of shows how different industries prey on these people. and they unfortunately don't know better. But the people who are advertising to them totally do.
And then by this point, they're still dry. They catch wind of somebody coming in from Florida who's going to have more heroin, but the price is now doubled.
Yes.
Well, so they're dry. And earlier in the movie, they mention that Marion has a therapist, but she only sees him occasionally. And it's not even really a therapy session. It's so that he won't tell her parents that she has stopped going to therapy.
Got it.
He is a wealthier pervert, and they get so desperate that they want Harry and Tyrone. Well, I don't think Tyrone was in it. Harry I don't even want to say that he's convinced her, because it's both of them, right? To go to him for money so that they can score.
Right.
Is there a different way that I can say that? Because I hate saying that.
Score?
Yeah.
No.
Okay. Well, then we'll just leave it.
Okay.
And so she goes and eats dinner with him. And there's a scene in which he puts his hand over her hand on the table. And she has this moment in her head where she imagines, hitting him or throwing something on him. Because he's clearly somebody who takes advantage.
Doesn't she stab his hand?
Oh, with a fork. That's what it is. Yeah. That doesn't actually happen.
Right.
But you can tell that she really resents this guy.
Yeah.
She ends up back at his place, has sex with him. At least that's what they allude to.
Rough sex.
Oh yeah, it was really uncomfortable. They don't actually show them in the act, but they did show the beginnings of it, where he comes onto her and starts
grabbing her neck
aggressively,
and almost choking. It's just it's very handsy, and you can tell she's very uncomfortable.
Right.
But she's that desperate.
But she knows that this is what she has to do to get the money. And when she comes back to the apartment, it's the two of them just keep taking drugs so that they don't have to feel anything.
Yeah.
That is what this whole movie is that they need those drugs so that they don't have to think about their lives. And they can just...
It's it makes doing what she just did worth it, because she doesn't have to feel it for however long that, that high lasts.
Right.
But...
she gets the money. She goes back to Harry, and then Harry and Tyrone go to this location, which I think is Walbum's, a grocery store or something.
Where a shipment of heroin from Florida is coming in. I don't know if things like this exist. I assume they got it from somewhere.
Right.
But it's a crowd of people in this grocery store.
In the back
of the grocery store
area.
Yeah, in the loading dock. And this drug lord is just set up with
his 18-wheeler and his 12 bodyguards with guns.
Right, and just mounds of drugs.
Yeah.
And it's a first come, first serve, I guess, type thing. And so it gets out of hand, and his security guards just start firing their guns.
At the crowd.
Right. And so everybody takes off.
They leave empty-handed, and Harry shows back up at the apartment to Marion and has to tell her that they didn't get anything. She loses her ever-loving mind on him because she feels like she played her part, and he promised her or told her that things were going to be okay if she did it, and he came home without anything, without a plan. I don't know how long at this point it's been since they haven't had anything. I feel like it was a 24 or 48 hour period. Because there's even a scene in which she tries to blame him, even though she's the one that woke up wanting to have a little hit.
Yeah.
And he did a little bit with her too. And I guess they emptied their supply. And then she gets mad at him the next day because he
wanted to get high with her.
He wanted to do it too. And
right.
If he hadn't, then she would still have some.
Exactly. So it's just feeding into their overall toxic relationship.
Yeah.
They're both very codependent, and at the same time, they're just enabling each other. And selfish.
Yeah.
So
it's really dark the way that they talk to each other.
Oh yeah.
I understand that because I know that she's emotionally distraught. I mean, they both are. This is doing a number to their bodies, psychologically, physically,
He's not he's not the one going out and having to sell himself to get drugs or to get money for drugs.
Mm-hmm.
He's using her to do that.
Right.
So she's doing that for both of them, where, yeah, he's doing his part on a different level, more of like a business level, if you want to call it that. But she's doing very dirty work to get their supply.
Right.
Right.
And that same fight is the one where they revisit the Big Tim dealer or distributor, whatever you want to call him.
Sure.
He writes the number down on the back of a photo of the two of them and basically tells her that if she's that desperate and she wants to, score right now, that she can call him.
Right.
And he will give it to her for, sexual things.
So Harry and Tyrone leave Marion behind to go to Florida to try and score from this guy that was at the grocery store.
Mm-hmm.
On the way there is when we get the first good look at just how fucked up his arm is. Somewhere along the line, they were able to score a little bit, and he shoots up and then gives it to Harry, who raises his sleeve and shows his arm, and he just sticks it right in to his dying tissue.
Mm-hmm.
And having never been a drug user, I don't know why he just didn't use his other arm, or just like pulled over and had, maybe he's, he can't use that arm to shoot up, like whatever his dominant hand is.
I know he mentioned that if he does it anywhere else, he'll blow the vein. And I know that that's a problem when people continue to use, trying to do it directly. And they've used so many different areas that their veins just blow. But
maybe
to
that was like
do
his
it
last option.
In the exact spot in which you are clearly having a problem.
He injects it into an open wound.
Right.
Yeah.
That's just to show you like how deep into this he is.
Right.
And then, these scenes are happening like right next to each other. So they're showing you a little bit of like what's going on with like Tyrone and Harry, and then a little bit of what's going on with Mary, and then a little bit what's going on with Sarah. And they revisit Sarah, which is the mother, and she ends up going to the studio where the show is filmed. And, her journey there is just people looking at her like she is clearly an addict of some sort. She looks dirty.
Well, it shows her on like the subway, and she's telling everybody she's going to Hollywood. She's going to be on the television, just over and over. And she's that person that you see on TV or in movies on a subway who's just insane, right? And she's become that person.
Yes.
And everyone's just looking at her like, sure, lady, okay, whatever. And she, again, as you said, she just looks
wrecked.
Yeah. Like, I mean, her hair is half roots by now.
She's dehydrated.
Her face is just sunken in.
Yeah.
The dress is just like falling off of her at this point. And yeah, she's just ranting and raving. She runs, or she gets to the studio, as you said, and just wants to know why they haven't called her back.
Right. She's super polite about it. She's like, I just want to know when I'm going to be on TV,
Right.
or whatever. But she looks incredibly unhealthy and worries the staff enough to have paramedics called.
And it cuts to her at the hospital, where a doctor quickly looks at her pupils, does I wouldn't even call it an exam, and just says she's stable, send her to psych.
So all the while they're cutting in between the three character groups. And the next one is where Marion has contacted Big Tim and goes to his home. And he's actually, or it appears that he is a wealthy man, right? It's a very uncomfortable interaction because you know what's going to happen. They sit on the couch. He talks to her about something between like black women and white women giving better blowjobs or something like that. And then, is excited and talking about how he just wants her to get started, essentially.
But I noticed, and I did not do any background to see if this was substantial or not, but the alcohol that, what I assume is alcohol, that he gives her is a like a neon, like a highlighter almost. Mm-hmm. And I don't know if that was just like a light hitting the drink or what, or if it was like absinthe, which
wouldn't surprise me.
Right. And that if he knew what was coming, then he would be trying to get her messed up or loosened up before that. Right. So again, I'm not sure if that's what it was, but I think it would make sense given the kind of like sleazebag that he obviously is.
Yeah, he made a comment about after he like pulls out his penis, which is never shown, but is implied very heavily, right? He says, I know it's pretty,
but it's not like just for you to look at or something like that. Yeah.
Like,
and that's when he puts his head or her head in his lap. Right.
It's just a really uncomfortable situation, and it shows you the desperation that she is going through and
how he knows that she's desperate.
Yeah.
And that he's just feeding off of it.
Taking advantage of taking advantage of an addict. Mm-hmm. I mean, that's it, plain and simple. Taking advantage of an addict who is in such a low place that she is willing to do
anything
to get her fix. And it's cutting in and out between. The next scene, I think, is like Harry and Tyrone, and Harry had blacked out after he shot up. He wakes up and he has like intense pain in his arm, and he reveals his arm, and there's just these really dark veins coming out of that injection site. Not to mention the injection site looks 1,000 times worse than it did in the previous scene. And Tyrone finally is like, we have to take you to the hospital. It comes back to Sarah in the hospital, and the two people that are taking care of her in the psych ward are just having a conversation about their weekend events.
Yeah, they're discussing a blackjack game.
Right.
All the while just like manhandling her and just throwing her around like she's not a human. And they, I guess she's not eating.
Right.
And they just, it was one of the more disturbing scenes for me, just how aggressive, I guess it was.
Yeah.
They're showing zero remorse or empathy for this person who has a problem, who's going through all this. And they're just
mechanically going through the steps that they need to take to get her fed.
And they're just shoving a feeding tube up her nose
while she's awake.
Right. There's no anesthetic, there's no nothing. And she's trying to fight it, and they just hold her head still.
Yeah, they act like she's not even there. They're just carrying on their conversation as if two friends were drinking coffee together.
Exactly.
It's incredibly dehumanizing. It's awful to watch. She screams in agony, and they just keep having their conversation.
They just talk louder.
Yeah. This is definitely a turning point in the movie in which I couldn't stop watching. It was like a train wreck. And it was just a dehumanizing event after another, after another, after another, where they have reached their all-time lows. Harry and Tyrone get apprehended in the hospital, and they get taken to jail, and nobody's listening to them. Nobody cares. They have that scene where, the police officer or correctional officer or whatever is like, can you hear me? Can you see me? Okay for work. And that's it. That's the only criteria that they have to meet in order to put them to work.
No mental testing. No, how stable are you as a human?
Or just health-wise in general. I mean, Harry, all the while, has had this raging infection in his arm, and no one has addressed it. He was at the hospital. They took him out of the hospital before even treating his arm, and immediately put him into custody. And, he makes a comment, the correction officer, about how they need to get him to the hospital, and he may not even make it through the week. Like, they just don't care. It was an awful thing to watch. These people are suffering. They're going through withdrawals in the cells. So Harry is feeling this intense pain in his arm, also feeling withdrawals. Tyrone, is withdrawing, having that experience with his friend where he desperately needs medical attention and no one is providing that for them. They give Sarah more drugs, the mom.
Yeah. So they're trying a bunch of different cocktails on Sarah back at the hospital, and she's just not responding to anything. There's a scene in the hospital with the doctor where he's just like, there's only one thing left that we haven't tried. And he starts talking about ECT, which is electroconvulsive therapy. And it's just this barbaric, brutal... I don't think this is how it's done anymore. I don't know.
But they even have her sign the paperwork, and in that conversation, you can tell that she's out of it. It's the doctor doesn't even care enough to make sure that she understands what's going on, that she's okay. She's still super... I'm assuming she's high off of the cocktail that they gave her. At least that's the impression that they're giving. And they still have her sign the paperwork, which is absolutely crazy.
Yeah.
That she doesn't have anybody there that can speak for her or can, help her in any way, shape, or form. They're just...
Like, she's not in a place where she should be making medical decisions about herself.
She's not sound of mind.
There you go.
Yeah.
It shows her being strapped to a table. They have like a plastic mouth guard in her mouth so she doesn't bite her tongue. And...
we need to backtrack. Sorry. After Marion, who is Jennifer Connelly, is done with Big Tim, he mentions that they're going to have a party that weekend and he's going to have some friends over and they're all like nice people or whatever the case may be. And if she comes through, then he'll give her more. And she makes a comment. She's like, oh, that's okay. I'm not addicted. And he makes a side comment when she's leaving. He's like, I'll see you this weekend, Maid Marian. Because that's what he keeps referring to her as. And I do remember there was that scene where she was laying on the couch, like snuggling her heroin because
that's her safety blanket.
Yeah, that's what she needed. And so she ends up going back that weekend because she runs out, right? And she arrives there and it's a dark apartment, I think, or wherever they are, it's dark. And all you can see or hear are men. They're cheering and they all have flashlights.
Right.
And you quickly learn that it's just this circle of, I guess, businessmen. They're all wearing suits. I can't necessarily say they're businessmen, but they're all there because they want to watch this circle of sex, which is, in of itself, probably one of the more disturbing scenes that I've ever seen in a movie.
It's definitely up there.
Yes.
Yeah.
They're cutting between Tyrone and Harry in prison, Harry in the hospital getting his arm amputated because that's what they end up having to do because the infection's so bad. Sarah getting electroshock therapy ECT. And they're just cutting in and out of these scenes over and over and over again. Very quick little scenes with this.
It's just it's
chaotic,
so intense.
Yeah. It honestly was a really hard thing to watch.
Yeah, I thought to myself during that, it's not even a montage. It's just such a quick cutting or intercutting of different scenes. During that, I was like, if this is not almost over, I don't know how much more of this I can take.
Absolutely.
Because at that point, it was only going to get worse.
Right.
And it did. So, as you mentioned, Harry loses his arm. And Marion
is forced to have sexual intercourse with another woman.
Yeah.
In this circle.
Yeah, and it's a very public, humiliating scene that I know is often referenced when talking about this movie. I'm not going to go into detail about it.
Yeah. No.
But if you want to see it, watch it, but it's gross. And it's so dehumanizing, and I know we keep using that word, but I'm not a thesaurus and I don't know another word for it. But it is. And she's having to do this with another woman while all these men are just chanting. And it's, there's just like a bunch of extreme close-ups of her face, and then
the faces of the men
the
surrounding
faces
her.
of all the men, and then of
The act.
the act. Yeah. It's so much to like, it's sensory overload.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
And it's emotional and gross and just horrifying that things like this, I'm sure, are happening.
Right.
And this is her level of desperation. And the level of desperation of the other woman in the act, and the perverseness of these men who are just taking advantage of these addicts for their sick pleasure. Right? Intercut with this act is Tyrone beating potatoes in prison and like churning them like it's butter. And there's just something that the director knew what he was doing. Right. Because it's showing this extreme close-up of this sex act, and then juxtaposed with another close-up of this butter-like substance being beaten.
Right. And he's obviously really uncomfortable or in a place in which he's not safe.
Right.
And so it just continues to perpetuate that feeling of just uneasiness and uncomfortability. And I mean, fill in the blanks, like with all the words, but yeah, it was a very powerful scene. It really was, to show the true desperation and the nature of the acts that they were willing to do to get a fix. It's sad. And, especially with, the opioid crisis in America, like there are so many people that are suffering from addictions, whether it be substance or
who get the meds prescribed by doctors.
Right.
And they just become addicted.
Like the mom, Sarah.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
I mean, that's real. That's happening every day. I mean, as is the heroin, but on a more like everyday level, I guess, for the everyday person, the mom storyline like hits or checks a lot of boxes.
Right. It was a very intense thing to watch. I, just like you said, there's really no point in going into detail. It's not the point. It is just how sad it is. And your heart really goes out to the people who are suffering with this addiction, who don't have the means to get help or don't know how to get help or get out of the situation.
Right.
It's that's all they see.
Yeah.
And they just keep doing it because they cannot feel what is going on in their lives. That is more painful to them than going through these events.
Right.
I couldn't wrap up my thoughts at the end of it. It was a lot to unpack. It is a really crazy way that they depicted addiction.
But a real way.
Right. Again, even the scenes that were really grungy, like, like we were talking with Brian's husband, Stefan, talking about how everything was filmed and how it is really beautiful the way they did it. And even those grungy scenes, like it was a very different way of, portraying it. And it's so hard to use the word beautiful with this movie.
Right. But it is.
But it was.
It is.
Yeah.
It's beautifully shot. It's the prettiest ugly movie.
Right.
That I've seen in a while.
And just the way that these lives were intertwined and how they are able to, put that or depict that in the way that they chose to film things. And it was just the most brutal outcomes I've ever seen. And I get it. I'm a bubble child. Like, y'all can come for me. I don't care. But it was hard. It was really hard to watch. My heart really felt for these characters. And there was a moment that was so beautiful and so heartbreaking whenever Harry and Marion are on the phone together. This is before the fucking scene with all the men. But he calls her from prison to check in on her. They both know that their situation is dire. And she says, Harry, can you come home? Can you come home today? And, he breaks down and he sobs and he tells her, okay, I'll come home today. Even though they both know it's not happening. Yeah. It's like it's
just what they needed to hear.
Right. They're so deep in their own shit. I don't know how else to put it.
Mm-hmm.
That like they did that for one another, but it was so heartbreaking just to see that they're down a really dark path.
Mm-hmm. For
and
sure.
to see where they ended up, it was just so sad. They were really trying to, I don't want to say they were trying to turn their lives around, because they were still trying to score, right?
Yeah.
But they were trying to make it so that they wouldn't have to do these things.
Right. They all had aspirations and goals that they were working towards, that they had to, in their mind, keep doing this in order to achieve.
Mm-hmm.
Like the mom with being in Hollywood,
Mm-hmm.
she had to take those drugs to fit into the dress, so she'd look good in Hollywood and
To
appease
get
all
that
those
ideal
people.
image of
And,
herself.
Tyrone and Harry wanted to make that score and do all the cutting and get that pure stuff from Florida, so that they could be at the top of the food chain and they didn't have to do this anymore. Mm-hmm. And do all the dirty work. And
Marion just wanted her, I don't even think she necessarily wanted it. Maybe she did, but she just wanted to have like her clothing line.
And Harry wanted that for her. Like that was
Yeah.
part of his goal as well, was so that he could provide for her.
Mm-hmm.
And they could all have that life
Mm-hmm.
together and be out of this and just be living comfortably, right?
Right. And the whole thing was just really hard because these people were human beings. They're complex characters. They have families. They have feelings. They have lives. People that care about them. People they care about. And in the end, they were treated with no dignity. So all in all, Pants,
Mm-hmm.
what are your closing thoughts?
As I said in the beginning, it was a very good movie. It was very eye-opening. It was scary. I mean, it was, in a lot of ways, it was a horror movie,
Mm-hmm.
right? And yeah, I don't want to watch it again. I don't know that I ever will. I would say, if you think you can stomach it, then I think it's an important movie to watch.
Yeah.
Just given everything it shows, it's all real.
Right.
That everything in this movie is happening every day.
Right.
And I think that's important for people to know.
Mm-hmm.
Right?
And I agree with you. I think that the movie was well made. I probably won't watch it again either. Again, it's because of the intensity of the movie.
Right. It's nothing
not that
against
it wasn't
the movie.
right. It was that the movie provokes a lot of feelings and emotions that are really dark.
Uh-huh.
And that's not me.
Yeah. I mean, it's a movie that actively made me uncomfortable for the whole hour and 40-minute duration.
Right.
No part of that movie made me smile.
Mm-hmm.
No part of it made me laugh.
Mm-hmm.
And that's just not the kind of movie it is.
I mean, truly, there was not a single point in this movie in which I chuckled or had a moderate smile. The whole time, you're just in shock watching the story unfold.
Yeah. I mean, I think the only time I had a light thought, at the beginning, and thinking to myself that Jared Leto looked like Zac Efron.
I don't see it.
With the hair, it's totally Zac Efron in High School Musical.
I do want to know what it was like filming with Jared Leto in this movie. And I know we had touched it just a little bit before we actually sat down to talk about this movie, but he's a method actor.
Mm-hmm.
And so I remember when he did Suicide Squad, that the cast would talk about all the crazy shit he would do because he never breaks character. And I know you had a fun fact about it, so I'll let you share that.
Yeah. So Jared Leto actually lost 25 pounds for the role and also befriended a real heroin addict, a couple of them, in Brooklyn to prepare for the role.
Yeah.
I mean, he was doing method acting 21 years ago when he was... I think this is probably the youngest I've seen Jared Leto in a movie.
Did Fight Club come out before this or after? Because in Fight Club, he was pretty young, too.
That's true. I'm not sure the year. I want to say it was after.
So I know this podcast was a little darker than we both had intended. But
Yeah.
it honestly was a very good movie. I think it's number 91 on like the top 100 movies of
all time.
yeah.
Yeah. Rightfully so.
Yeah, no, I mean, yeah, but it was beautifully done, really intense. Prepare yourself if you're going to watch it. I do recommend it, but you'll only see it once, just like us. Or maybe you'll start it twice and then finally finish it the third time.
Sure.
Third time's a charm. So now is the magical part in the podcast, where we are going to roll the die.
Magic.
And we are going to decide the movie that we're going to watch next week. We decided that we're just going to do it, right?
Yeah. So it is your turn to roll?
Oh my gosh, it is.
Is that right?
Yeah, because you rolled last time.
I did the W, you did the L, I did the R.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Oh, I'm so excited. T for Tom Hanks. Can we watch a Tom Hanks movie?
That's not how this works.
Okay. Is there a movie called Tom Hanks? Let me go look.
No, there's not.
Titanic.
We've both seen Titanic, but what you haven't seen is The Last Jedi.
That's annoying. But if you get The Last Jedi, then that means I get the next role.
Well, no, it's ultimately your pick because it's your role. But I'm just heavily suggesting since you've never seen it.
No, this is so dumb.
Well, guys, we're going to wrap it up here. Be sure you check out our Twitter at WTF Did I Watch Pod. And we'll be sure to update with the movie that we're going to be talking about in the coming week.
This is going to be so hard, Vance. For those of you that know me personally, you know that I have a very indecisive personality sometimes, and there are a lot of movies that I want to see. So we'll let you guys know, but it is going to take some thought. So definitely make sure you subscribe if you like what you're listening to. We're on Apple Podcast, Spotify, Overcast, and Stitcher. Make sure to rate us 5 stars because you love us, right? Let us know what you think and leave us a comment if you like what you heard so that you can help others find the show.
All right. Well, y'all have a good week, and we will talk to you next Friday.
Okay, bye. Do you remember the... Of course you do. Remember the R. Kelly Trapped in the Closet music videos?
Of course I do. Like the 50-part video with the little guy. I just remember there being a midget. Those got so ridiculous. Like, I wish they were streaming as a movie.
And I'm in the closet.
So bad.